fiercely pursuing accountability on policy and implementation. It's time for another DJL7 candidate interview.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy DJL7. That's right, and it's time for another candidate interview. Now, we got actually a very special candidate right here, but I'll let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randy Purham. I am running for the U.S. House of Representatives for the great state in the last frontier, Alaska. Born and raised out of Chicago, spent 22 years in the military, U.S. Army. I retired in 2020 and decided to throw my hat into the ring to see what happens and make some changes for the House in this coming November.
A deeply appreciated veteran. For real, man. Yeah, someone who's willing to sacrifice. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much for your service. Okay, so quick question is, I'm super glad to have a representative from Alaska, right? Yeah. So, tell me, why are you running?
So, Alaska is a very unique state, and with my military background and foreign affairs experience and everything, I think I will serve Alaska very well, along with the United States at that, and representing the U.S. In that capacity in the U.S. House of Representatives, and also a lot of things went down in 2020, with all the elections across the United States. It was just like, yeah, we have to get some people in there to make some changes, and the perpetuity that's going on. We had enough as grassroots candidates, and so this is why I'm in here.
Okay, so you already got a little bit to it. I'm going to ask about your relevant experience and core competencies. Maybe you can go a little bit more in depth. Like, I know you were in the military. I know you had some foreign affairs experience. Maybe you were in the Army, were in the Marines. Were you doing some type of diplomatic work? Tell us a little bit more about your relevant experience and your core competencies, right? Maybe you were trained diplomat. I don't know, right? What kind of things were you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my job in the military was chemical operations specialist, or CBRN, for those that understand that language there. I did 3 tours to Iraq. That was 2003, 2008, and 2011, and then from there did a tour, a contingency operation tour in Kuwait in 2014. Outside of my last 3 years in the military, I served in NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, over in Italy, and got a chance to really get involved in the foreign policy aspect of things in terms of CBRN related matters and other just general scope geopolitical things. And so that's kind of like my scope there.
Being Korean American, I've always paid attention to what goes on in Korea. And the information I get there is so incorrect. I just don't believe anything coming in from the news. So someone who's actually been there on the front lines, nowadays we don't really get frontline footage like we used to. And I know that you've seen a lot of things that other people just aren't even aware of. And I'm super grateful for that perspective. I think it's a very necessary one, especially when it comes to those types of affairs, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I can't wait to find more about your perspective on what you understand about what's going on, right? So let's move on to the next question. Now, a lot of people talk about, like, they say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, right? But what a relevant accomplishment, right? Now, the thing is that some people say, well, the most accomplished thing, most proud accomplishment is having my kids, and that's cool. Not saying that your kids aren't important, but the thing is that I'm looking for relevant accomplishments as in terms of governance or management, right? So what relevant accomplishment are you most proud of achieving?
Ooh, that is an excellent question. The most proudest achievement is hard to say. I'll probably say, broadly speaking, is my leadership abilities. I've been a leader in several organizations, ranging from different
So
capacities.
Under that effective leadership, what was accomplished? What was? Yeah.
So the most recent leadership role I just came out of was I was the district commander and post commander for the Veterans of Foreign Wars in Europe. And upon completion of that, I walked away as an all-state and all-American commander, and also was part of I was selected as one of the 10 classmates for the VFW 2020 Legislative Fellow Class number 6. So I would probably say that's probably my most recent accomplishments under the leadership category there.
Okay, so you got that title because what, you met certain metrics, or what did you
elected? I was elected. Yes, there are some requirements you have to meet, but I was elected as the commander for the post in Naples, Italy, which comprised of a little bit over 100 members. And I was elected as a district commander at the same time, which is kind of unheard of. And that comprises over 7,000 members.
So what allowed you to win this election here?
I was just demonstrating, leadership and just understanding how to get things done. And a lot of the members had faith that I could lead the organization and make it happen for them over there in Europe.
Okay, so it sounds like you have like good people skills. Okay, interesting. Okay, good to know. So now I have some political partners that I work with. I'm gonna ask their questions first. So first I'm gonna ask, you know who Julian Assange is? Would you support the freedom of Julian Assange?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Julian Assange. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you would?
I'm sorry?
You would support the freedom of Julian Assange?
Am I willing to support the freedom? Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, because he's a fighter for truth. I'm a big supporter of the Constitution. I'm a constitutionalist. So anybody who's trying to espouse freedom of speech and getting information out there, I'm behind them 100%.
I deeply appreciate that. Let's move on to the next question. What about UBI, Universal Basic Income? Are you willing to support that?
Not so much.
That's actually quite a good, interesting take, because you're actually from Alaska, which has a something like a basic income type thing. So
no, incorrect.
Okay. Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. So let's see.
So I explain that, and that is kind of a misconception. It's called the permanent fund dividend, and what that is. So Alaska is very resource rich state. And so the extraction of those minerals and other natural resources is distributed, throughout the world. And the compensation behind that is what's given back to Alaska in a monetary form. And it's not all Alaskans that get it. You have to meet certain requirements to qualify to receive those benefits. So it's more of a benefit rather than just a kind of like a freebie.
Okay. Well, the thing is that there's a lot of programs that people just blindly support that end up weaponized against us. So, I don't mind a critical look at some of these programs right here. And to tell you the truth, just supporting UBI blindly can be dangerous, straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, we're just looking to see what we could agree on. So that's fine. Let's move on to the next question. I also work with the people with disabilities. Big props out to Mark Zafman, who after a month of protests in front of City Hall was actually able to get the disabilities advocate restored. But this is a separate question. Now, the thing is that people with disabilities right now, they're actually allowed to be paid sub-minimum wage. Now, the thing is that I understand that they may have lower productivity, and maybe we could make that with federal subsidies or something like that. But when we look at, minimum wage, it's like a subsistence wage. You're barely making rent and paying, for food in a way that's kind of like, it's not like you're living rich, right? You're above the poverty line. And people with, disabilities have more costs. Can we actually, if they're working, can we actually find a way to make sure that they're getting at least minimum wage?
Absolutely, I do think so.
Appreciate that.
The problem with when we throw the term minimum wage out there, and we throw terms like fair share, it becomes a subjective conversation at the end of the day, because we look at the landscape of the United States, and we look even around the world for that matter. The cost of living varies so much. So when you say, everybody should be paid $15 an hour, well, guess what? In Alaska, that is the minimum wage, in a lot of places, depending on where you live. So
yeah,
they still barely make ends meet there. So the call for $20 an hour would be more of the argument there. So yes, everyone should should be able to make a decent living to meet their necessities based on where they live. And I am a big proponent of pushing for something like that, just based on like I said, the totality of where a person may be living at.
I appreciate that, and the disabled community appreciates that. Thank you so much, sir. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, let's take a look at the trans community. Now, the trans community, we look at them, and let's be real, they face a lot of discrimination in their workplace, and I get it. Right? It's an alternative lifestyle. I'm not saying I approve of that, but it's an unfortunate reality. Now we take a look at these people. They may end up poor, and they may end up so let's take a look at this example. This is just made up, by the way. Let's say 10% of the people applying for public housing are trans. And when we look at the numbers, right, because Medicare auditing is one way they do this to look for race-based, discrimination against, so we look at the numbers and we see 2% of the people living in the housing are trans. And we see this discrepancy. Now, there's no loss, right? We asked them and they say, you know, they're facing discrimination. They're saying, like, you know, they have unpleasant experiences. They just didn't want to stay there. So we say that so we see there's some discrimination happening, right? But there's no law saying you can discriminate against trans people. In fact, there's law saying you shouldn't, right? What can you do to assure, right, that these people can access, right, public resources that are, you know, they're taxpayers? What can you do to assure them for fair access?
Thank you for that question. So, you know, from my perspective and dealing, you know, being in the military and even in the civilian side of the business world, I never really had an issue with working with or supporting anybody from any kind of lifestyle.
Right.
That's number one. So for me, it boils down to, you know, how they are being discriminated against. Are they blatantly just put on an application, I'm trans and I should qualify for this? You know, that becomes a problem because now you're trying to force someone to, you know, take up your views or your you know, your intersectional issues and what have you, and it may not be for that. So
I get
you know,
that too. I get that
yeah.
too. Right?
So we have to address that, you know, at a subjective level. But I am all you know, I will support any legislation that will prohibit any kind of discriminatory acts towards anyone from any kind of lifestyle.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
Because that's what we, you know, that's what America's about. You know, we are a diverse nation.
One question about this approach, though, right, is this question of percentages and possible quotas as a solution or as even, right, a diagnosis for the problem. Right, remember I said 10%, 2%, but then people are self-identifying. That's one issue. Then another issue is, right, people, right, there's all kinds of, like, possibilities that are going on there that just make the numbers problematic, right? How often are those numbers accurate, right? They need to get crime down in the community, so they redefine it as a violation instead of a misdemeanor. Now all of a sudden, right, they're still making money off the fines, right? But the crime went down a lot, right? I'm a super successful politician right here. So yeah. So what are you doing to make sure that so in terms of quotas, right? How do you feel about that remember I said before, like the Medicare system that they used to audit? But I know it's a tough question, right? But
no, it's actually not a tough question.
Quotas and
it's
stuff,
actually not a tough question. It's a great question.
Cool. Okay.
You know, the quota-based systems, you know, it should be a thing of the past at the end of the day. You know, I look at things, you know, it should be, you know, based on merit and what you bring to the table at the end of the day. You know, we're like I said, we're such a diverse society that, you know, I get it. There are bad actors in every organization and every facet of our lives. We have bad actors, you know, they will try to, you know, incorporate nepotism or, you know, cronyism and support their friends and family and what have you. So that's just part of that. That's just part of the structure there. And we have to address those things as we see them and as they come. But overall, you know, in terms of having a quota-based system, that's something that should be, you know, done away with at the end of the day. If I get applications in front of me, removing all those little identifiers or those intersectional markers, I look at, you know, who's the best qualified person to do the job.
I think that's a good answer. I appreciate
and boom.
understanding your perspective
and move
on that.
on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the thing is that have you ever heard of something called right to repair? Okay. So the thing is that if you take a look at cell phones, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that if you crack your screen, you take it to the Apple shop and they say, oh, you know, it's like basically $300, $400 to fix the screen. You might as well just buy a new phone. In fact, like people have dropped it in the water and then they take them to these little small repair shops that have been able to fix the screen for, let's say, $100, right? The thing is that actually the Apple employees are just not even trained to do this, right? Because they don't even want them to. They really just want them to sell more phones.
Yeah.
I get it too, right? Yeah. I get that's part of the way that they do this marketing. So the thing is that now what they did is they changed the chips inside the screens where it won't even work with the new phones. You cannot do the repair anymore. And if you take a look at the, actually Biden recently made an executive order because the military had so many problematic contracts with people who had exclusive right to repair military vehicles, and it was causing backups, right? So they had that thing happen. The farmers with John Deere have also, and if you look at McDonald's, that's actually one of the most famous examples. You notice how the ice cream machine is always broken? Okay, that's because the company who has an exclusive contract to repair those machines and charge them like $10,000 to fix the machine each time. They just said,
Yeah.
and if they fix it, it works for like a couple days and it breaks. They're like, nah, we're
Breaks
not
again.
fixing it no more, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of unregulated, like basically almost borderline dishonest practice, right? By
It
building
is.
in costs. So, would you
Mhm.
support the right to repair?
Uh,
That means that we have the
yeah,
right to repair
I
our own
would.
devices. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Any if there's companies that are because it runs along the line of antitrust. You're trying
Yeah.
to put a market. You're trying to put a you're trying to corner the market on repairing things or having a product availability, if you
Yeah.
will. And so I would be for hey, either you can fix it or you replace it. Don't sit here and try to upsell the customer, especially if they're paying money for it. If I got it, there's terms and conditions in contracts where, hey, your phone would not be covered if you dropped it in water, type of thing. And I get all that. That's on the consumer to ensure that they understand the terms and conditions of contracts before they get into these things. But in terms of just everyday operational stuff, yes, the right to repair should be a thing where they fix. You bring a product in, you say, hey, I paid for this and it broke. Can you fix it? And it should be done. And it shouldn't be a backlog, or they subcontract that work out. If they're backlog, they should be able to subcontract that work out to somebody who can make it get it repaired in a timely manner.
Yeah, there's actually there's just a lot of like I should actually send you some videos on the topic. We're gonna have a panel discussion on this to just illustrate
Sure,
how
yeah,
much,
I'll appreciate
yeah,
that.
how extensive the control has like really, to what extent they've really reached out and
Yeah,
exerted control
Microsoft
over
is
all
a
this stuff. Yeah,
yeah, Microsoft is it was probably one of the notorious criminals behind that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Apple
yes,
also is getting real
yeah,
bad with it.
Apple
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to some of the more general questions, and this will just help us to really understand you as a just general candidate for your House of Representatives race, I believe. And by the way, that's a pretty good race because that's a little bit more localized, so your local connections will be a little bit more powerful for you there. You have a better chance of winning. So that's actually, I think, the smart race to run in if you're not really, super connected, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and Senate, we got to have a lot of money behind you. So, having the
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, money is a factor,
it really is.
unfortunately. But
Okay. So one of the biggest issues that we have in this country that people are thinking about is the wealth gap. The rich are getting rich, the poor are getting poorer. What's your plans to address that?
well, it's goes back to societal structures. We can talk about increasing wages for the middle class or the lower class and everything, but would that really solve the problem? No, it wouldn't. And we already seen evidence of that, because the producers are just going to increase the prices. So those gaps are always going to be in existence. Now, how do we fix these gaps? I would say the best way is to bring the producers to the table and have that conversation with them. Like, look, how much is too much for you at the end of the day? And can we scale back and cut down costs? And one of the ways by scaling back and cutting down costs would economically lower the expenditures on behalf of the consumers, the middle class and the lower class at the end of the day. And then things would kind of even out after a while when you bring those producers to the table and say, hey, enough is enough. And I'm not talking about in terms of taxes either, because the taxes are just being sent. Our taxpaying money is being sent overseas.
Are you talking about something like a maximum wage solution?
I don't want to get into the maximum wage solution, because I
Okay.
had that conversation before.
It sounds like you're going towards that direction.
It's towards it, but not exactly on it. So when
Okay.
we're talking maximum wage, now we're not getting into. Now we're talking almost a socialist type of structure. In terms of that. That's why I said we would have to have that conversation as to what is how much do you need to make in order for it to be considered too much. And that's either as an individual or as a company, or or as a group, period. So that a person can make, so for example, a person can make $3 million in a day, just by pushing out a piece of paper to a bunch of folks to
Yeah.
tell them to do something.
Yeah.
Is that 3 million? Is that too much? Why do you need $3 million? Can we cut that back to say 1.5, and then we take that other 1.5 and distribute that, and raise the wages of the workers that's doing that work that you're telling them to do. It's fine. You can keep that. You can keep that. You can make that $1 million, but do you need all three? Help your fellow citizens out.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting. Max out of $1 million per day.
Was that? I'm sorry.
Maybe they can max out at $1 million per day. That's a lot. That's
That
ridiculous. That
is ridiculous. I agree.
I mean, dang. Some people making more than that though.
True. Very true.
I mean,
so
yeah. Damn. Okay.
It leans towards max wage, max wages, but at the same token, it's kind of like you can still live a comfortable life while helping others become comfortable as well.
Okay.
And that's the kind of things that I see.
All right. So, look, the government spends a lot of money on like different, programs such as Social Security, Medicare, and welfare. What are your plans for those kinds of programs?
There needs to be a level of reform there, but in order to and what I mean by reform is, there's some people that are on the system, but in these systems that don't need to be in the systems. There's some people actually make a living being on welfare. They are perfectly suitable to get a job. They just choose not. And I know plenty of people like this. Growing up in Chicago, seen it every day, all day. So there's some things that we need to address with that. We look at the homeless population in the United States. Those people are going without because you have people who are abusing the system and is not leaving enough resources to allocate to those who actually need it. So these are things that I would love to be a part of a panel or a committee in Congress to address those issues and fixing those problems.
All right. Well, that's it's good that we understand your take on that. Let's move on to the idea of criminal justice reform. This summer we had like George Floyd protests and all this other thing. What are your thoughts on criminal justice reform?
It starts in the home, and not to sound cliche, but it really does. It starts in the home. We are a society where today's society, that is, we're trying to coddle the criminal by making excuses for them versus holding them accountable. And but parents, we're involved in our own lives versus our children's lives. And in the school, you see it in the school system, in the education system. Parents just drop their kids off, they go to school, and whatever happens during the day, it happens, and they deal with the aftermath of it, later on, either on the weekend or in the evening when they get that phone call. So, those perpetual pillars is what creates the society, the criminal society, is because they're being allowed to do what they want to do versus being held accountable. So, in terms of the criminal justice system itself, we have to look at fixing the problem first before we address the solutions that are already being implemented with that.
Well, all right. It's good to understand your take on that. I'm mad at that. All right, let's move on to education reform. We look at this country, we spend a lot of money on school and on our teachers and stuff, and we look at the outcome, it's not that great. Not only that, we have this huge student debt, $1.4 trillion. We got the schools with I think Harvard sitting on like an endowment of $50 billion. What can you do about this?
Education, looking at the, I catch a lot of flack for saying this one. So I'm going to say it again anyways, because I don't care.
Let's go for it. Hey, you represent a certain viewpoint, and you should let people know. I'm not mad at that.
Exactly.
I still think there's a lot of things we can work together on, and I'm excited about some of the things you say. And thank you so much for participating with this. I'm really excited. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So the Department of Education, everybody says that the Department of Education should be disbanded or, abolished. I disagree. The Department of Education actually serves a purpose. They're just serving the wrong purpose. So I would compartmentalize the Department of Education to suit the needs of the states. And then from there, the states can come in terms of anything they need at the federal level, that is. The states can say, hey, I need this for my state. And then that little department in the Department of Education, that little section, they can handle those issues. So right now right now our education system in the United States is cookie cutter, and it doesn't work for everybody across the United States. You have the East Coast, they learn things differently than those on the West Coast. Then you have the Central States, they learn things different from each other as well. Alaska, for example, it is a very, very, I guess you could say, a natural resource driven state. So you got your fishing, your oil industry, even your tourism industry. So those are the kind of like the focal points in Alaska. You're not finding that in Illinois. You see what I'm saying? So the educational drive, excuse me, that is being implemented by the Department of Education is too broad, and people are not learning anything. Then we have to look at the actual curriculums itself that is being espoused by the Department of Education, being pushed down to the states. They don't equate to anything. We could get into talking about critical race theory being pushed in schools. Like, how is that going to benefit you getting a job tomorrow?
Actually, like, even worse than the critical race theory issue, to tell you the truth, I work as a tutor. And the thing is that, like, these kids are passed without being able to write a sentence.
Yes.
So the thing is that, like, I get them in science, right? Because the thing is, there's going to be a part of the test that has, like, a short answer portion. And they can't write a sentence. But the thing is, they were passed in English. I'm like, how did you pass English?
Yeah.
I was like, how did you do that? Yeah, I do the best I can. But honestly, the pressure these schools have to pass these kids, because otherwise they're failures, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can't be failures, so they just pass these kids, and it's like, what? You're not helping these kids or yourself, really.
Yeah, and they're still failures.
Yeah, it's not good. It's really not good.
In application, they still are a failure because, like you said, they can't write a sentence.
It is,
so you can pass them on paper, but when they go out there into the real world, into society, they're still a failure because they can't write a sentence. They can't, get to that job interview because they can't even speak well enough to, get through an interview process or understand the basic things in life that they should have learned at home and in school. The home sets the foundation. The school builds on that foundation.
Okay.
And that's the thing that we fail to understand in society today. So that you have these cultural shifts, from home to school, versus when you have a child that's being raised at home and they go to school, the school should mirror the same values that are being generally taught in the homes within that community.
What
we
about,
don't have that anymore.
What about that student debt issue?
So the student debt issue, that's going to be a thing, for eons.
I feel like we're scammed.
Unless they just abolish it altogether and say, you know what, the Department of Education or the government itself would no longer issue out loans. If you need to go to school, then hey, figure it out, type of thing. Or we can look at, like you mentioned, you said something about Harvard's endowment program. Schools are bringing in enough money to where they can scale back their operational costs.
Wait a second. You said you were a chemist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So you went to school for some chemistry while you were in A school and all that, right? Yeah? After A school, right? Yeah, okay, that's cool, man. All right, so hold up a second, right? Dead ass, okay? When you went to class, didn't you watch some YouTube videos and really learn how to do it?
No.
No? You just learned it in the classroom?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people, yeah, go to YouTube.
YouTube didn't exist back then for me.
That's okay. That's what's going on nowadays, right? There's no reason for them to charge so much money anymore.
True.
There's no reason. The amount of cost for this education is the most ridiculously overpriced, inflated thing. It's a freaking bubble. Yeah, and I'm sorry to spew off, but so I feel these kids.
No, you're absolutely right. I totally agree with you there.
These kids are starting off at minus. So minus they can't invest in a home. It's affecting our whole economy. This stupid education bubble.
Absolutely right. And that's where I have an issue with it as well. It's like why do I have to pay $750 for a book? It's
a scam. It's a scam and a scam. It's a scam and a scam. It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
I can literally Google everything I need to know about this class in a couple of hours and take a final exam and be done.
I swear to you, the teachers now, what they're doing is they're playing YouTube videos in the classroom. I swear to you, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they are.
It is.
I know it.
It is. Why are they even getting paid? Why? Right? They take the test from the test company that pays them to get in on the scam, so they don't have to do the work. They give the already given exam to the kids. It's the same test across the whole country, because nobody's doing any work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Common Core.
I'm sorry.
That's the problem. That's the cookie cutter system that the government devised, so it will cut back costs to them. But at the end of the day, like I said, you can't cookie cut education across the board. You can't expect every child in America, irrespective of where they live, to learn and know the exact same thing and expect them to actually be successful in life. I support STEM programs. So if there's going to be a greater emphasis in STEM programs, then you have to build a foundation to funnel those kids to go into those STEM programs. And in order for that to happen, there needs to be silos built under arithmetic, math, reading, and just the basic fundamentals to be able to participate in those STEM programs. Right now, we rank, the United States ranked number 36 in the world in terms of education.
And one thing I want to talk about the critical race theory, because I do have to say that in some ways I am sympathetic, but let's be real, critical race theory, how often do you see Asian American men around that stuff? How often do you see them representing our interests ever? I challenge them, okay, in the progressive space, I'm the only Asian American male YouTuber in the game, constantly excluded from stuff, from critical race theory advocates, panels. Like, what's up with that? Like, dead ad, like, go see for yourself. It's been over going on 3 years, yeah? Go look for yourself. So I'm sympathetic to these people, but let's be real. Are they really about helping out, like, all people who's underrepresented, or are they really just in it for themselves? Yeah. Look at the evidence your damn self. That's what I have to say. Sorry to
no,
I'm sympathetic. Right. I'm sympathetic, but come on now. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Okay?
And it's not, it's not even about being sympathetic. Okay, so when we look at, let's peel back the theoretical framework behind critical race theory. Okay, it is not based on, what people think it's based on. It's based on a simple fact of, hey, these group of people are oppressed because of their skin color, and these are the oppressors because their skin color. And you flip that around and you look at the Marxist methodology behind that. It's the bourgeoisie and the proletariats, the rich class and the poor class. It's the same principles. And there's the authors, the creators of critical race theory will tell you that they took the Marxist paradigm and they just applied it to color-based system.
I don't see.
So there's no empathy or sympathy to be given, because they're taking a construct that doesn't even really actually exist.
But they're allowed to think
they only apply it to the American. They only apply it to the American system. They don't even apply it around the world. Yeah, that's the other funny thing.
I'm not going to get too. They're allowed to think whatever they want to think. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So look, I'm just okay. So let's move on to the medical reform. We spend once again, just like education, we're spending a lot of money on on our medical care. But we look at the results, and we're actually one of the last in the developed world. It's kind of sad. Also, this whole COVID thing has been a real mess. Actually, one thing that we're trying to pass at for the unified platform, what's going to happen is anybody can suggest things, and actually you'll get credit for things that you suggest. But remember, they're going to have to try to be ratified by a majority of the independent and third-party candidates, and then we're going to pump that in their faces for the whole entire time to try to bring light and more eyes to yourself, right? And the fact that also we have Republicans and Democrats on the panel. Oh wait, you're Republican, right? That's wonderful, yo. So we can show that we're willing to work together, right? And we can ask Congress why they can't do it. It could be great press for ourselves. You get what I mean? And to bring attention to we're already working together on multiple issues, right? We already agree on multiple. This is great. I'm super excited. Anyways, so the medical system, once again, right? We see that the spending is high. The results are low. This COVID thing's a mess. And one of the easy things to say is, if you lie like Fauci, you deserve an automatic review. Like, this is not like, you don't get to just lie like that. And we just, okay, can you lie to us again, please? Yeah. Anyways, so go ahead. What's your thought on medical reform?
So medical reform, it's cut and dry for me. Bringing these companies in and let them know, hey, why is it that it only costs you $1,000 to get this piece of machinery to scan for cancer? but yet you're charging each patient $5,000 to pay, to utilize this piece of equipment. Makes no sense to me. You should be like charging them maybe $5 because you got 500 cancer patients. You already paid for your equipment.
The scam.
One time over at least.
The scam, how they pump those test machines.
Yes.
How did you know about that? You had some experience in the hospitals or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm very familiar with the hospital industry. Yeah, and the pharmaceutical industry.
Me too.
And so,
all right.
It is a.
That's some insider knowledge right there.
Yeah. It's a scam industry, and it's a shame that we have people out there in the world that are getting over on those that are in need of that actual expertise and that help, especially in the pharmaceuticals. I will be probably spearheading a lot of initiatives in Congress to help reduce those costs. President Trump talked about favored nation costs and everything else. I'm all for that. Why should we be paying $15 for a pill when XYZ company is only paying $1 for the pill?
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. For real, we need that. That's exactly why we need to do this, right? We need to do this so we can just get back control of this ridiculous stuff. Okay, what about the COVID response? So tired of talking about it, right? I feel like it's over. It's over, right? It's over, right? Everybody's running around. Okay. Everybody's running around.
COVID came and went.
Okay, that's cool. I'm ready to leave it there. It's dead.
It's time for us to move on from COVID.
I'm not mad at that. Okay, let's move on. Hey, I love Alaska. I've always wanted to visit because I heard the environmental, right? Yeah, I heard like it's a nature paradise out there. What's your thoughts for environmental reform?
So once again, it goes back to your environment, where you at. Environment. You can't cookie cut some of these things. Across the world. Okay. For example, and here's where people get upset with me when I say this as well. The United States is trying to move into environmental friendly. We're gonna cut off the pipelines and everything else. However, we're still importing oil from Russia. So it's like, what are we doing? Like, either we're going to drill and have our own stuff and keep the cost down, or we're going to still, utilize the same stuff and get it from somewhere else. So environmental reform, yes, I'm all for, moving towards, renewables and moving towards, things that may be eco-friendly and what have you to, reduce, carbon emissions and what have you, if it is a practical and viable solution to do so. But until the technology is readily and widely available for everyone to just equally transition over to it, then we have a system that we have to utilize fossil fuels, because every car on the street today, just about outside the electric cars that's coming along, they're still using oil. We're going to need oil regardless, for the machine, for the parts to move. So it's kind of like,
one thing they say actually is that we have so much computing going on that we're not going to have enough electricity to run all the right. So there's going to be energy shortage. That's going to be interesting. So
yeah, that's true as well.
Yeah, wow.
That's true as well.
Yeah. So appreciate that. And then environmental reform. Any other types of ideas about environmental reform?
There are a lot of reforms that need to be made, and one in particular that a lot of people don't understand or know about is the Jones Act, and as to how that impacts our import and export, our trade in the United States, especially within the United States. And so with the Jones Act, it was created in 1920, and it's a legislation, and that's one of the things that I'm running on, is tackling antiquated legislation. And so the Jones Act prohibits, the usage of vessels, boats that were not 70, at least now, as in terms of today's terminology, language in the bill, 75% made in the U.S. So there's a problem there. The U.S. imports nearly every single thing when it comes to manufacturing boats. So those boats cannot actually move cargo around the United States because they don't meet the qualifications or the specifications of the Jones Act. And one of the things that I plan on going to Congress with a coalition of other congressional members that their districts and states are affected by as well, is repealing that.
That makes a lot of sense.
It would reduce the import costs for a lot of goods that are coming into the United States.
Yeah, I bet you the trains will fight it. The train companies probably fight against that, and trucking companies. But water is cheaper, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, the train and plane industry will also benefit from it as well, because really? a lot of the cargo that's coming in can only come in by boat, and once it hits those ports, then those trains and planes are able to carry those products. As long as there's an impact on the boats getting to those ports, those trains and planes can't go anywhere without those goods. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Wow, you've really been advocating on this in depth, because you're able to speak about it on a deeper level, and I appreciate that for real. Yeah. So you have some advocacy work experience? Yes.
So being in the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, for your audience there, that's one of the things that I've been a part of many years, and that is advocating for veterans for healthcare issues, education issues, etc. The whole apparatus of just the total soldier concept.
You're doing a good job. Also, Republicans have a strong. I think you got a good shot to win. What do you think about that?
Yes, I think I do. Given that Alaska has the largest population per capita of veterans in the United States, and although we're one of the smallest populated states, it is the largest by veteran count.
I think you're a very reasonable guy. I think you present yourself excellently. I think you got a great shot, man. Seriously, I'm super impressed.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm about to ask the toughie question though right now. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. So here's the thing: is a lot of people. Okay, this is a big person one for me. Yeah, I'm a big hater of corruption. And
Yes.
right, the thing for me, right, I really see this as really the number one problem, right? So a lot of people say they're against corruption, right? But then when I ask them, are they fighting corruption now, right? Then they can't say anything, right? Yeah, they'll say some corruption that everybody else knows about. Are you willing to pull the trigger on something, anything, right? Yeah, and show us right now. You're a whistleblower or somehow, right? Yeah, you're ready to show us that you can be trusted to fight corruption. Do it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a few things. So for your audience also, they may not know, I also run my own podcast as well on the Exceptional Conservative Network, TECNTV.com.
Cool, man.
And on there, I talk about these things all the time. I call out corruption all day, every day.
Do it
on that show.
Hell
and so,
yeah. All right.
in the current works right now, there is two other candidates that I'm working with. One by the name of Alfie Goodwin out of Pennsylvania 5th Congressional District, and Raven Harrison out of Texas 26th Congressional District.
Love it.
And to include myself, all three of us have faced, some cronyism and some corruption within our own campaign races. So we've been calling these things out, and the parties don't like us too much. And so yes, yeah. I am very anti-corruption. When for Alaska, we're going to what's called ranked choice voting this year. And this will be the first time that Alaska has this type of election system. And it's the top four that advances on to the general, and then it goes to ranked choice voting from there in November. And so some of the issues that are being seen right now is that there are candidates that are working together.
Yeah. Actually,
you know where I'm going with this.
Let me share this with you, because the thing is that here in New York City they did have ranked choice voting, and
Yes.
the thing is that a lot of people promote ranked choice voting, and it has its pluses. Okay, I guess I'm still for it. Right? I also investigate other ones like star voting. I also have a video on that. I'm part of people probably try approval voting, other styles. But the thing is that ranked choice voting, they're incentivized to capture each other's base. So nobody wants to say anything that's really controversial, because they're clutching each other to stay cool with everybody else so they can get their base.
Yep.
You see that going on right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going against the grain on that.
Good.
and they're not liking that. I consider myself a grassroots candidate. A lot of the other the constituency in Alaska, they see me as a grassroots candidate, while they see the other candidates as the establishment candidates. They're, like you just said, they don't want to say anything controversial. They shy away from, the hot issues and everything else. I'm like, this is where I stand, and this is why. You know, you go to my website, rpermforus.com, and I lay out all of my issues, and
This
I
is wonderful,
detail
man.
it.
This is
Yeah,
why
I
I'm doing
detail
this.
it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I detail it. They don't even, some of them don't even have a website. They don't want to put a position on anything. I'm like, ask me the question.
So say a name. Go ahead. Pull the trigger.
Yep,
Who is it?
exactly.
Who is it?
What's that? Oh,
Who is
it's
an establishment candidate?
Nick Begich. Nick
Nick
Begich the third,
Begich.
and Don
Okay.
Young. Don Young is
yeah.
the
Let
yeah,
me know.
Don Young is the incumbent right now for Alaska. He's been in office
Okay.
since 1973. So it's going on 48
Wow, that's a long ass
years.
time. That's a long
Yeah.
ass time. That's
Yeah.
a
And
little
so
too long.
his hand-picked successor, as some people like to call it, is Nick Begich the third.
Oh no.
And he's running and right now, and so they're playing that game right now, and a lot of people see right through it in Alaska.
Are you saying that we
like,
shouldn't let them coronate like some crown prince? Are you saying that? Yeah.
No, they should not. You know,
There you go. Hell
the
yeah.
people
No
should be able to
coronation.
choose. Yeah, people
That's
should
right.
be able to choose, you know, the candidate that they want, you know, to represent them.
Yeah.
Not have this elite group of people that says, okay, this is going to be the person, and you all have to take them whether you like it or not. And that's what's happening right now. And it's okay, you know, because at the end of the day, come August 16th and November 5th, the people are going to go into that ballot box and they're going to decide who they actually want.
Yeah.
So I don't need to put up the fanfare about what's going on. Everybody already knows.
Hey man, you're a really cool candidate. I want you to share all your information right now. You got a website, you got social media. What's the deal?
Yes, thank you. So I'm on all social media platforms. That's Twitter, Getter, Gab, MeWe, Rumble, LinkedIn, YouTube. I'm all on there at rperm. That's the @ RPURHAM. My website, my congressional website is rperm for US, RPURHAM, the number 4 US.com. And any support can be thrown my way. I truly appreciate it. And I thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today and have me on your show. I appreciate it.
I hope that you could drop your links. Actually, I'm gonna send you the link of the show, and you could drop it in the comments afterwards, right? Or I'll put it in the description as well. But wait a second, okay? Now that people have your information, now they know what's coming up, right? You're doing some events. You're gonna need help with ballot petitions. What's coming up for you?
So right now, it's kind of a lull. Right now, don't have really too much going on. When I do get back up into Alaska, I will be having some things, mainly just some door knocking and talking to people. I'm kind of going to focus on the industries and seeing what their issues are, you know, and help them out in that regard. But other than that, I'm easily findable on social media. I'm hanging out there all day, engaging and talking with people around the clock. So
hey, I gotta ask you about. I want to just, I'm just so honestly, I'm a big fan of yours already, right? But I just want to ask about two upcoming. First, we have the criminal justice panel forum. I think you'll be participating with that, which would be extra cool.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Right, but I do have questions about other stuff, right? Just considering your other positions on stuff. For example, we're having a panel discussion about reparations. How about, what do you think about that? Not a big fan of reparations?
No.
I didn't think
No.
so. Yeah.
I actually wrote a paper about that a while
Yeah.
back. But reparations for what? You know,
Okay. Is there something, right, that they could do to get it to pass, right? Like, is there some way that could make it acceptable for you?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And the reality, it's just a talking point. It's just a talking point. You know, it's just one of those things that people talk about and say to get into other people's emotions and their feelings. Because when you actually look at the application of giving reparations, there is so exclusive that technically, and by all metrics, no one qualifies. You know, you just look at the baseline definition of reparations. What does reparations actually mean? You know, we don't fit that bill. You know, so then it's like, who are we giving reparations to, and why? Who was injured?
Okay, I just put one, right? I'm not gonna keep stretching it, but what happens if we said, right, we took in an area right in the south, right, in the rural area, right, and we said 40 acres. We said how much that land is worth, and the cost of a mule, and we said, you know what, people who were promised that, right, then we're gonna make sure that if they can show descendancy, then we will give them, right, the value of that from the tax money. You know what I mean? Because they were promised that, so we're gonna make sure they get that at least minimum.
Right. I'll break it down for you. I'll break that down for you.
Okay.
So 40 acres of a mule.
Maybe that would get that would be
it,
something acceptable. I don't know, right? Is that getting closer to acceptable for you? I don't know. Go ahead.
It could be something. It could be something as simple as, hey, you are a descendant of a slave, right? Here's $500,000, to make up, for past atrocities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I take that $500,000. I blow it at the casino.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
People could do that. Yeah, that could happen.
Yes.
You're right.
And so now my grandson, 20, 30 years from now, is going to come along and say, hey, I want reparations. No, we gave your grandfather reparations already, so you don't qualify for reparations. That actually already has happened in the past. And a lot of people don't want to visit that history of the Reconstruction era and how things went down when reparations was given out the first time in U.S. history to the African Americans that were freed from slavery. A lot of them squandered their money. A lot of them squandered their land. There's my family has land in Lauderdale County in Tennessee.
Okay.
A lot of my family members don't want anything to do with that land because it's too much work. So they sold the land. So how can I sit here, or my posterity will sit, could come along and say that we're owed something when we have it, we just didn't want to keep it.
That's fair. Okay, so either way, right, I hope that you would attend just to, at least express your side, just so people know, if they can pass the votes or not, right? And if they can't, right, then they can't, right? So that's fair, right? I want this to be the candidates who are involved. I want everybody to participate and have a fair shot, right? This isn't mine or anybody's, right? This is ours together. And I think that we can agree on a lot of common sense stuff, honestly, right? On so many things we agreed, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Cool, all right. The last one is, okay, just so you know, for the upcoming criminal justice reform one thing that's really cool is my brother he's actually been incarcerated for a good portion of his life, but he's actually had multiple sclerosis. So one thing is that he's going to actually be able to tell people is his perspective of having a disability while in prison, and some of the, just to see, a story we don't commonly, get to see and understand that perspective, to make sure that community is taken care of. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. I think it should be a good time, right? Yeah, to talk with other candidates too. Remember, the purpose once again is to make suggestions that can pass ratification. At least half of the independent and third-party candidates, to have that majority discussion. And right, your participation as a Republican is amazing, and it shows that you are truly an anti-establishment candidate. Because I know down here that they don't like that. The establishment guys don't like that, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
God bless, brother.
God bless you too. Take it easy.
Thank you. I hope you win, man, for real.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
It's a dark day in our nation when high-level authorities will seek to use every method to silence dissent. The truth must be told.
And if you want the truth, you need to check out independent media producers just like myself, DJ L7. You should subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications when I release a new video.
Truth of these
we
words
are on all
is
the major
beyond
platforms.
doubt.
That includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube. Unfortunately, we have definitely seen that these mainstream outlets will cave to corporate interests, so we encourage you to join our independently moderated communities of Reddit and Discord. We also encourage you to subscribe to us on BitChute and Daily Motion so you can see the content that YouTube doesn't want us to let you see. Hey, now it's time for the most important part of the video. That's right. It's time for us to tell you about the Taking Action group. Do you need an activist? Or maybe there's no activists around willing to help you with your cause and you need to learn to become an activist. That's exactly why we're here. Every week we get up with people from across the nation, in fact even sometimes internationally, and we develop strategies and a game plan to address the issues that are affecting all of us. Every week myself from New York City and of course my co-host Lisa from Los Angeles provide a coast-to-coast perspective on what's going on in the country. If you want to donate to help out with expenses, travel, equipment, stuff like that, then I definitely appreciate it, and you could hit us off at Venmo or PayPal. Thanks a lot. Hey, by the way, we also have a merch store, so check it out. Oh my goodness, it seems like you've reached the end of the video, so make sure you check out some of our other videos. Make sure you subscribe. This is your last chance to do so thanks a lot. And looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please comment below if you have any questions or issues you'd like me to address. And if you're an activist, the time to make things happen is now.